It's just little things that you just find in that is a hurdle that once you jump over that hurdle, you're like, okay, I'm over that hurdle. And now I'm in tune with what it is. I'm in tune with making sure I definitely come in and see Dr. Bats and be like, hey, let's see what it looks like.
Time to embrace change and be about that life.
This is Dr. Bats with the About That L.I.F.E podcast, the podcast about life or living intentionally forever. As you all know, I have the joy of being a preventive sports cardiologist. What's that mean? That means that I try to, for lack of a better term, put myself out of business. I try to prevent heart disease or prevent the negative outcomes that can happen from individuals with heart disease. Now, as a sports cardiologist, my role is a little different. Do I get to take care of the elite tip of the spear athletes, largely tactical? Sure. Do I use exercise to modulate certain disease states and improve health? Yes. But I also get to take care of a group of individuals that I like to call masters athletes, either people that used to and can't or want to and wish they could. But either way, these are athletes that have grown a little bit in age, but not in desire. Well, today, I'm not going to hold back. I'm going to bring you someone who is a friend. He actually is a patient of mine, but a survivor, not of an untoward cardiac event, but a survivor on the actual show Survivor. That's right. He was able to navigate a spot on that show, but we'll get into how we met, right? Because we didn't meet because I had to clear him for Survivor, so to speak. We met because he had a cardiac issue that might have limited this master athlete from moving forward. Well, as I said, this individual is a cybersecurity expert with over 20 years of military service. He has his own podcast, his own YouTube channel, and a charity to help raise money for things across the world. He's linked in with the Survivor group. I want to introduce to some and present to others, my friend, Eric Abraham. How you doing, my friend?
Dr. Bats, that was outstanding. Hey, I appreciate that. For a second, I was wondering who you was talking about.
You knew I was talking about you. At some of our encounters, we'll meet up, and I'm looking at the clock. I'm like, I still got to do work, and we just have such a good time every time you come in. Even now I'm not. Now he's a Georgia Bulldogs fan, if I'm not mistaken, and he comes in every time with some piece of paraphernalia. And my Jayhawks, my Kansas Jayhawks, we put up a good fight, but I won't hold any hard feelings for him from that standpoint. But how are you doing today? What's going on?
You know what? When you contacted me, I said, hey, I still got to get my workout in for today. So I jumped on my weights, did a little bit of weights today, and got out there and realized that Texas sun was a little hotter at 6 o'clock. So I kind of let that go a little short. Other than that, I can't complain. In the summer in Texas, having a good time, trying to keep my fitness regimen in place. It's interesting how our paths crossed in the time of my life where I was thinking it was going to be, hey, just keep on a steady path, still do the things you did before, and you'll be good to go. Next thing I knew, Dr. Bass was a permanent part of my life forever.
Yeah, no, and we talk about that because it was I won't say happenstance. I think it was orchestrated. It was divinely identified, but it was one of those things where when we met, I saw so much of me in you, and I think it was likewise that I was just as surprised as you were. Now that said, as a cardiologist, I do get to see the spectrum of illnesses, and we'll talk about the illness a bit later, but.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of what's your story now? Cybersecurity expert, military career. What got you into that field? Because cybersecurity, and I know you know these numbers better than I do. They said by the year 2030, there'll be 15 jobs for every cybersecurity because there's not enough people to fill the seats. Talk about that a little bit, just in case if folks want to know, how you got into that and what drew you to that.
It's an interesting journey because that's not how I started out in the military. My 22-year career was in human resources. My MBA with the emphasis is in human resources. So everything that I did was all tailored around human resources. Even when I spent time as a college professor, it was teaching human resources. Then I retired and realized I couldn't find a human resource job at that same level of leadership or where I had achieved in the military. And my friends that were around me were like, hey, why don't you try IT? Now, don't get me wrong. Now, I did have friends that used to teach me databases and teach me different things about coding and things of that nature that kind of drew me into it. So I had a passion for it, but I never thought I would have a career in it. Me, I'm thinking, I'm HR all the way, human resources. I enjoy dealing with people. I enjoy interacting with people. I think the human part of our career field was the best part because we get to deal with people. Then I retire and I realized that nobody's waiting at that same level that you achieved in the military for you to get a job. So a good friend of mine named Joe got a call for a job as an instructor in cybersecurity for a program. And he said, I'm not a good fit for it because I don't have a teaching background, but I do know somebody who has a teaching background. My very first job was teaching a subject matter that I had no depth of knowledge in. And I said to myself, you got two choices: collect that first check and get fired, or you learn this job. And Dr. Batts, I love to work. I love to work. I was fortunate to be around some very good, talented people that they were about training you to be the best you could. They didn't judge on what my skill set wasn't. They said, hey, we'll show you what you need to have and you'll build upon it. So it was a great adventure for those first I say 2 to 3 years, as I got to understand the language of cybersecurity. I got to learn the language of IT. There's so many different aspects of IT. There's so many different aspects of cybersecurity. But at the same time, I'm an instructor. So I got to have at least a basic understanding. The best part about coming in as an instructor, I got to talk to everybody.
Wow.
So as I built that curriculum to go out there and talk to other people, I was getting educated on cybersecurity.
So, and I love the way how you were able to pivot, because a lot of people will give themselves a no. I always tell my kids, don't give yourself a no. Let somebody else give you the no. It's always a yes. I say, especially when you're going up the career ladder. One of the things that one of our lead kind of more sage cardiologists told our younger, what we call early career cardiologists, is in this field, you got to say a whole lot of yeses before you earn the right to say no. And then your no's have to be strategic. It just can't be no. It's got to be a reason why one no means a yes somewhere else. And so I love the way that you said, hey, look, I'm looking at this, employment landscape. And even though I love what I do, how do I pull that into another space? And how do I still have that intentional approach to dealing with people and navigating new things with a new task? And I mean, and you said, coding and all, you said that kind of flip. That stuff is hard. I look at what my kids do. You just said it, flip. Yeah, coding. Yeah, no, folks, just don't think you're going to roll into it like that. He's done some stuff. And the reason why I know is you'll come in the office and I'll act like I know. You'll be like, hey, I had to do a C+ on the JavaScript, and I don't even know what that is.
It's a language we speak in when we're not talking to human people.
See, there you go, right there. You would say that, and I'm like, yeah, that Java, that stuff is bad. And I just get better typing because I don't know what that is. But
It's never a boring
you
day.
were able to do it, I think, speaks volumes to your ability to be flexible and to be intentional about kind of what you've done. Now, in that, oftentimes it shows that flexibility and ability to pivot. So let's talk about, what I like to call, and I won't say the highlight. I think the highlight for me was meeting you and engaging, but the show Survivor, right? I mean, this is an iconic show. I've seen it, replicated, but not duplicated in other forms. But this is something that we embraced not only as an American culture, but internationally. This is the thing. And tell us the story of, because again, I got to read through some articles that they had done on you, and you talked about when you were, I think, in Japan, you saw the first episode, and a guy Richard won, and you said that's gonna be me. That was in 2000, and talk about that journey and what that meant. I mean, it is. These are the stories that I love to hear. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
22-year-old me, stationed in Okinawa, Japan, saw a show called Survivor. And I said, I got to get on it. It was 18 castaways during that season, split into doing competitions out in the middle of the nowhere. And I was like, that's my kind of show. Now, I grew up in the South, so I'm familiar with being outside, but also grew up in the city in Atlanta, so I'm used to the asphalt jungle. But in the summer times, I went home to South Carolina, a little small town called Manning, and my grandfather taught me the ways of being in dirt, hanging out in dirt, doing stuff in dirt, picking berries, things of that nature. So I see this show I'm like 22. I know I can do it. I'm like Superman right now, not believing that anything was gonna touch me back then. So I go in there and I do a VHS tape. That's kind of dating myself right there. And I put together my little packet and I submit it. And I don't think anything about it. And nothing comes of it. Survivor goes on to run 2 seasons. The next 20 years, Survivor's on. So as I'm bouncing around, going to different countries, I go from Japan to Guam, I go to Korea, I go to Germany. Guess what? Survivor's still on.
Still going.
Now, think about it. I did 22 years in the service. I come up, I'm retiring, and we decided to settle here in San Antonio. And I don't jump on Survivor, but I'm still active. I retired about 38. I'm still playing basketball at least 2 to 3 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still lifting weights. That physical aspect of from high school to running track to being in the military, staying active was always a part of my life. So I've always been active, never sitting on the sideline. We playing basketball until basketball stop us, but never got hurt. So I retire from the military. I'm here in San Antonio for 2 or 3 years. I'm transitioning from human resources to cybersecurity. I'm getting my feet under me under that. And one evening I'm looking at Survivor and, let me back up because I had a major incident playing basketball. I tore my Achilles. I partially tore my Achilles.
Okay.
That would have been the first major physical anything that ever happened to me in my life. And I said, wait a minute. And when it happened, I was on base playing basketball, and it was such a way that I basically just turned and it popped.
Wow, man.
It wasn't a physical move. It wasn't anything that would have gave me any warning. And as I laid on the ground, I said, well, first thing you can do, you can't cut my Nikes off. It's so hard to get a pair of high top Nikes. I said, hey, put them scissors down. Y'all need to undo them springs and get my shoes off. I still got those shoes too. So I tear my Achilles and find out, it's going to have to heal. But that was the first time in my life that I had a physical incident that psychologically impacted me, where you're so cautious now that you don't even want to step off a sidewalk, or even when they say it's physically healed, psychologically wasn't healed. Yeah, I didn't get that confidence back until I went back and played basketball. So I went back, I played basketball at the same level that I had played before. I took the time to heal mentally and physically. And that was the first time. So once I got back and I was like, okay, cool, I'm back. Superman is back.
Yeah.
That was just a minor injury. I'm back, even though it took me about 13 months to fully return and get back to who I was before. Because that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to get back to who I was.
And I mean, and I'll interject there. I think a lot of times, present company included, people don't give themselves time to heal or recover. I tell people the single most valuable tech tool that I have purchased, and they're not paying me to say this, the single most valuable tech tool that I have purchased in the last 5 years has been this thing right here, my Aura Ring. Right. And my wife jokes me about it because she's like, you need the ring to tell you whether you had good sleep, bad sleep. I said, yeah, because I'm somebody that just goes, right? In 4 hours, I'm awake, I'm good to go. But the ring will tell you, hey, your readiness isn't there. And I think with you, you were in tune with your body, number one, because you stayed active. I tell people it's hard to know what you can do if you don't do anything, right? And so the fact that
the marker is low.
Yeah, like if you have no baseline of physical activity, now that's not to stop people. Hey, if you want to get going, just work into it. But if you're performing at a high level, when there's a decline. And as a sports cardiologist, the beauty of that is that when someone comes to see me and says, hey, I was running a 6-minute mile, now I'm running a 7-minute mile. Well, that's still pretty fast, but they saw that level of decline, when it shouldn't have occurred. And in your case, having that injury, dialing it back, working back to it, I think gave you a framework upon which to say, okay, I have to allow my body time to recover. So, kudos for that. Like I say, you're always teaching me stuff. I still need to dial it back, but I'm not hoping I'm not tearing anything, but I'm going to keep pushing. I'm going to keep pushing until my ring tells me to stop.
Not the ring. It's an interesting experience as we make transitions through our lives. I don't think you have to stop. I think you have to modify. Because I realized at 22, I could throw up 315 on the bench. I could squat 225 on the squat rack. Then go out there and play basketball for 2 or 3 hours. Then as you got older, it's just like, why? Well, I want to stay in a certain level of shape, but I don't have to do it that way. And I think that as you get older, you learn different things that fit your
Mhm.
body and different things that keep you at a level that you feel comfortable at. So I kind of do stuff that make me feel comfortable. I don't do anything because, we did stuff to impress people back in the days. Now I might go in the gym and look at the weight rack, but I'm not interested in putting 225 on there anymore because I don't need that to keep this body in shape.
See, I still got a 17, 18-year-old son,
Yeah,
so
no, no, no.
sometimes I
Oh no.
still gotta go beast mode every now and then. I gotta and then now he don't know I gotta recover the next 3 days, but for that
No.
one for that one day, I throw it up on him. But then "You okay?" "Yeah, I'm okay. Don't even ask me." "Oh, yeah, I done told
Now,
that. Imma have to call in."
if I walk in the gym and they hooping now, because I
You
don't I
on
don't
it.
I don't look my age, so
Yeah.
I'll say, hey, I'm up next. Hey, I'll get on the court. I'll run with you.
I mean,
But I
are
know,
you on the court, are you Unc or you OG? Where you at in the
you know
pecking?
what? If I shave the beard off, I'm just another baller.
Okay, cool.
But
But
if I
with the
if I keep the
beard,
beard, they know I got some type of age on me. They
so
just
they
don't know
okay.
where it lies.
Okay, so you
Um,
might be, "Hey, old school, go ahead,
yeah,
get
yeah,
it."
yeah. I might old school,
You old school. Okay,
old school. They
I'll
don't.
take an old school. See, I'm still at the Unc OG. I'm almost in OG, but I'm still Unc right now. I'm still Get him, Unc. Unc
They
still
tell that
got
they can't tell
footwork.
that age. Yeah, they can't
Yeah,
tell that age.
they don't know yet. So
All you got to
and I
do,
want to stay Unc age. I like Unc age. I like Unc age.
I don't know. When I was growing up, I saw a lot of older guys that now I look back that they were still doing a lot of the things that
Right.
I see older people that are not even that old, no, that they're no longer doing. I
Mm-hmm.
think once you get out of it, it's hard to get back into it.
Yeah.
Which brings me to part of how we actually met. So I'm sitting at the house and I'm watching the presidential debate on TV and I'm watching Survivor, kind of flipping back and forth. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna apply again, just half-heartedly, not really thinking about it. And I submitted another application and they wanted a video. Now I'm sitting in my office. I got the lights off. I'm not really thinking about doing a video. Didn't want to do a video. So I turn the lights on, I do the video, and I submit the application and I forget about it. Probably about 4 months later, I get the call from one of the producers saying, hey, we're looking at you. We want to see if you fit the cast we're putting together to be on Survivor. One of the unique things about CBS, and I'll give them kudos on this is when they started to really look at making sure they had representation of all people on their TV shows.
Mm.
Survivor and Big Brother was one of the leading ones where everybody was represented on that seasons and those seasons that passed. And I was fortunate enough to be a part of that 41 season that I eventually got cast for to be a part of that diversity and show that representation. Now, they're pretty rigid on their process for the show. So up until this point, I've only been hurt once. Only been seriously hurt in my life one time.
Mhm.
And that was at Achilles tour, maybe about 13, 15 months by this time. So I'm still feeling good. I'm like, oh yeah, you're ready. I do my tapes and I put it in. I'm going through the process, but they had a situation on a previous season in a different country where they had a heat stroke incident and 4 or 5 of the players end up suffering from heat stroke. One of them had to be helicoptered out. Survivor is also in other countries. Survivor is also in the UK.
Mhm.
Survivor is also in Australia and also in South Africa. Well, they had somebody who died of a heart attack in the UK season. So what they did
Goodness.
was they ensured that they did a medical evaluation before you go on the show. And part of the medical evaluation was immunization. So you and me being in the military, we know we had to do certain shots.
Mhm.
So some of them I had to get rechecked. Other ones I'd already had, and they did the shots on base. But there was also a stress test. I was like, okay, well, stress test is nothing. So I had to find somebody to do a stress test, which brought me to your office. Didn't bring me to you now. It brought me to your office. So now I'm hyped. I'm about to be on this show. I'm trying to keep it under wraps that
Now, Rick, go back. Explain to them the stress. To explain to them that what that process was, just so people understand. This was standard exercise stress test. So go right ahead.
it's interesting because up until that point, I'll give you up until the stress test, but up until that point, here's my activities. I probably walk about 3 to 4 miles during the week, Monday through Thursday. Sunday, I walk about 6 miles. I lift weights for about 45 minutes every day, Monday through Thursday, and then probably on Friday. If I don't play golf, or if I do play golf, I walk another 8 miles. So I'm pretty active. and I stayed pretty active. And when I tell you, I had no signs of anything, nothing bothered me. I didn't have any dizzy spells, things that I came to know after they gave me some of the signs that I should have been aware of, but I never felt them. Now, the stress test allows them to test your heart. I was on a treadmill. So what they do is they connect the leads to your heart area, and then they put you on this treadmill, and then you walk, and then they're reading your actual output from your heart. You can correct me on my definition of it,
You're
doctor.
doing great. You're doing great. See, I like to make sure my patients know what
No,
they getting, right? So they'll have, so if something crazy happened, they're like, hey, he didn't say, are you supposed to be? Yeah, no, go keep going, keep going.
So they connecting the leads on me, and I'm on the stress test, and I'm not thinking anything about it. I'm like, okay, this is like the second to the last thing I got to get done, and I got to have all this stuff shipped back over to their doctors. So I'm doing the stress test, and the tech is like, something doesn't look right. So he goes and gets someone. Me, I'm still not worrying about it. I'm thinking, well, something must be wrong with the machine because I feel great. This is nothing to me. This is not enough stress to cause me anything. And that's when I found out they identified something called hypertrophic myopathy. Had no idea what they were talking about. And I was like, what are you talking about? I feel great. I've never felt anything. And I went in and I saw somebody that was in the clinic and they was trying to explain to me. And I was like, they gave me a list of things that didn't identify me. So I couldn't identify with it. I couldn't sit there and was like, okay, yeah, no, I don't feel that. Now, if you even look at me, you'll say he gets out the bed in the morning to do some work. He ain't sitting in the bed all day. But the individual that I was speaking with was giving me symptoms, but wasn't talking to me. And that's important because that's how I ended up we'll come back around to that too, Dr. Batts. That's how I ended up talking to Dr. Batts. But at the end of the day, I just said, you know what? I'm gonna go do what my dream said I was gonna do. And if I die doing it, I'm gone. I'm gone. I just, the way that I felt from that conversation wasn't like I was being cared for. It was more like I was being talked to. And I said, you're not listening, you're not looking, and you're not understanding how I feel right now. And I'm like, okay, well, thanks, but no thanks. And I went on, did the show. In the back of my mind, I knew something might be a probability, but I said, if it didn't take me out by now, it's not going to take me out in these 6 weeks of being on the show. I go on the show, and sure enough, I give it everything I got, had a great experience, and I came back. But in the back of my mind, I said, well, you got to address what was identified. Something is wrong, and it's there. So you can't hide from it. I think a lot of people, when something happens, they tend to want to put it in the background and hope it goes away. In my case, I said, okay, actually, I spoke with a friend of mine that had retired, and you actually interacted with them. And I said, hey, man, I got something they identify. And I said, I need to go back over here and talk to the folks. Can you recommend anybody? He said, yeah, I talked to a great doctor. I said, okay. So I called over to the clinic. I said, I need to set up an appointment with Dr. Bass. They was like, well, have you seen him before? I said, no, but I need to go see him. And they said something. I was like, no, just anytime you can get me on this schedule, I'll come by. So that's how I ended up going to see Dr. Batts. Now, what's interesting is I wasn't so much concerned about what was said to me the first time. I was more concerned about my physical abilities and capabilities moving forward. So I get in there. I've heard about this Dr. Batts, but I don't know him. I don't know him from a hole in the wall. Never met the person, nothing. But the friend that recommended him, I knew him. And I know if he says he's a good judge of character, he's a great judge of character. So I get in there, and I remember that I said, the first thing I asked him, I said, Dr. Batts, am I going to die? That's all I wanted
I
to know.
remember that. I went to introduce. I was still at names, and that was okay. Am I gonna die? Whoa, hold on. Can we say hi first? Can we? It was the most surreal. But it said, you know what? He ready to get going because and I say this now because now my patients are like family, right? And so I'll usually say, hey, this visit, is it a listen or a fix? A listen is just we talking, we having a good time. A fix is I'm concerned. Let's get it. And maybe it's the cyber in you, or who you were like, I don't want any of the platitudes. When do I need to start filling out paperwork? Cause I need to know. You came in and you were focused though. You were laser focused. And I think that's good that you felt empowered to say, hey, look, Answer this question, then we can get to everything else, as opposed to, us kind of moving around. But I remember that because it was you one of the
Yeah,
first people that just came in straight out the gate. When do I need to call my people and tell them to come up?
yeah, I was like, well, I know it's there and I know something's there. And now I'm like, do I need to make preparations? I mean, your perspective changes when somebody tells you something that you never knew but was always there. So
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure throughout my military career, had they done an EKG on me early on, or at some point within those 22 years, they might have found something, or they would have caught it way earlier. But again, I never went to the doctor. I've always felt great. The few times I've actually been sick, it's like, okay, you got stuffy nose. There's never been, I need to be hospitalized. I think I've only
Hmm.
truly been sick twice. Well, I'll say I've been injured once with Achilles and I got a viral infection off a cruise ship once. Other than that, I've been fine. So I came in there and yeah, I was point blank. I need to know if I was going to die and I need to know I'm making preparations. Is this going to kill me? And I remember the care as an individual you gave and not as a doctor, but just as an individual and said, hey, no, let's sit down and let's walk through this. And it was at that point that I felt comfortable knowing that something was wrong, but it wasn't the end of the road of me. It wasn't gonna be your life is over next week because now you start doing things differently when you find out something may take you out that you wasn't aware of. But no, it was the piece that you gave me when I left your office that said I trust in Dr. Batts, but I trust in the individual that actually I just spoke to. Cause I needed to make sure, hey, if I gotta make some changes or I gotta do some things, I need to do them tomorrow.
Right.
But that didn't make me a good patient either, because I
No,
still ducked out on Dr. Batts because I didn't want to do some things.
you did. But I mean, but talk about, and first off, thank you for those super kind words.
Mm,
But at the end of the day, it's teamwork. And we'll get to, one of the things that I try to really embrace, and it's what's called a shared decision making model. And that's where it's not paternalistic. I'm not telling you what to do. It's my job to provide you with the information and help you navigate, weigh those risk benefits, and then ultimately the decision is yours. Now, do I have input? Do I have a desire of something that I want you to do? Sure. And we had, yeah, hey, I don't want to do it right now. Hey, you understand? I can give you all the no. I don't want to do it right now. But that's fine. I felt like, we were at a good enough relationship where I said, if he said, Dr. Bass, well, I don't understand why you want to do this, you would come back. But talk about now, because you did some research on hypertrophic cardiomyopathy either before or after our conversation. Did you look, or were you of this space to say, I don't want to know anything from Google? I don't want to know, because sometimes people will go to Dr. Google. I don't have a problem with that.
Dr. Google.
Read stuff and come back and ask me. I'm cool with that, right? But did you, being cyber, being able to navigate, computer systems, did you look up anything on hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, or did your family, or actually, did you tell your family? So first, did you look up? Then when did you talk to your family about that? The diagnosis.
It's what's interesting is I joined a Facebook page. I looked up hypertrophic and I found a Facebook page, but I couldn't find me. And everybody that I saw on there had conditions that I didn't have. They didn't fit who I was to be able to understand how it was impacting their lives. And I was like, well, where am I at? There was no, I'm not saying they were inactive, but there were inactivities in their lives that led them to some of the conditions that I kept seeing as a repeated
Got it.
on the page. And the drugs they were taking, I was like, I'm not even taking that type of drug and I don't feel that type of way. I don't have those underlying conditions. So yeah, I did my own research, but I couldn't find me to say, how do I treat me or how do I proceed forward with me? Because I couldn't find me. As I went out there and I didn't know the sports side of your life as well either. At that time, I just knew you as Dr. Batts, the cardiologist that was talking to me about this thing that I had, and I was trying to get a better understanding of it. But it's hard to find some person that resembles you and say, okay,
Right.
well, how did you deal with that? I don't have high blood pressure, which they say, oh, it's running in the Black community, but I don't have high blood pressure. I don't
Hmm.
have diabetes. So I'm like, well, I don't have any underlying things that could be a contributing factor to this, or had I had them when I was younger. So now I'm looking through all this miles of literature and videos just to find me or find an example of somebody like me. I mean, actuality, it wasn't until you told me you was on the sports side of the house and had dealt with athletes that I even thought somebody was out there that was at a physical level that was doing things that were even being able to still do things.
Hmm.
Then as I did that research, I let my wife know, but I'm a downplay sickness type of person. I'm not gonna tell you it's the end of the world.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, I'm not going because it's not the end of the world. And you know how some people present stuff as like it's the end of the world, but it's really not the end of the world. I
Hmm.
didn't want to present it like the end of the world. I wanted to present it that yeah, this is something that was identified. I can explain to it how it impacts. It's the thickness of my heart. Uh, and it's in centimeter. It's what's smaller than centimeter. It was so small. I was like, is that really a factor to the whole heart? But as I continued to visit, you made my language better. You made my knowledge of it better, which allowed me to say, okay, how do I need to proceed forward? But yeah, to your question, I still couldn't find somebody that was me. I couldn't, I was like, inactivity and underlying issues was a big benefactor to this, or genetics. I had the genetic test. They couldn't find any genetic link. This is not something that's in my family. So it was a difficult for me to try to say, okay, now how do you address something that you can't find on Google? You can
Right.
Google everything, but
Right.
I couldn't
Yeah.
find me
No.
on it.
And that's the thing. I mean, and when we think about, and I'll have the conversation that you and I had. Now, my memory isn't that good, but I explain it similarly, right? There's a spectrum, right? And that's why in athletes it pops up a lot, right? So hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, meaning thickness, cardio, heart, opathy disease. So there is a true disease state, and then there is this component that's physiologic. So when I saw your information, my first hope, could this just be physiologic, right? Because we both are kind of muscular, right? And if you lift enough weights, the heart is a muscle, right? So it responds like other muscles, it'll thicken. But there is a certain, and that's what you were talking about, where 11 millimeters, we're okay. 12, 13, we get a little concerned. When we're above 15 millimeters, at that point, we're saying, hey, this thing is getting a little thicker than we. And so when we look at the thickness and where it is, then we start to move into, could this be hypertrophic cardiomyopathy? And there are other clues. You talked about symptoms, dizziness, fatigue, passing out, extra heartbeats, all these other things. And when I was saying those, you like, I don't have that. I play basketball every day. You literally, and I said, well, I'm just letting you know, it's good that you're not having symptoms, right? But then when we kind of took a step back and said, well, what other objective information? And the biggest thing is the EKG, right? It's not a perfect test. It's a screening test to try to identify electrical abnormalities of the heart due to thickness in the heart muscle. And when we see that, it's not, necessarily, oh, it has to be that, but it falls into a group of conditions where we do have to do further testing. And then on those further testing, those being an echocardiogram, that's an ultrasound of the heart, an MRI, that's, where we MRI the heart and look directly at the tissue, that gives us the information. And I think once you and I met and we went through, and I don't know if you remember, where I actually laid out each piece of, I hate to say evidence, but I had to prove to you, because you said, but I feel good and I'm
I felt
doing this.
good.
I said, I know most of the young people that I deal with do feel good. Most of the athletes do feel great until we have
You
some
don't.
event. Exactly. Right. And so I didn't want that to be our story. And the beauty of it was, I think, even though I was, I won't say impatient, I wanted us to make a decision, but I felt like we were informed, right? Meaning, because
But yeah,
ideally people mash those words together, informed decision, right? Well, if I'm informed as a doctor, I want you to make a decision, but the fact is my job is informing, but the decision really is on you, right? Meaning I have to prepare you. And you said, give me the numbers. And I gave you the numbers. I gave you the likelihood. And you said, I got time. Let me think about this thing. Because as we move forward through that process, it helped both of us to understand that, okay, he still is healthy. Hey, doc, if I have any of those things, I'll certainly let you know. So once we articulated the diagnosis, understood where we were, and really kind of broke it down in that, you talked about the genetic testing and those type things. What were your next steps? How did you, I won't say bounce back, because throughout this whole process, you've been, for lack of a better term, you've been cool. You've been like, I got it. I feel good. You told me to do these things to make sure I'm safe. Okay. What else? How have you been able to leverage that? Because I can tell you that, and I'll use one of the interviews from Survivor, so they asked you, hey, the team didn't mesh with you well, and this happened and that happened, and you made the comment, you like, I get it. I can't make everybody happy, but I enjoyed the experience. I enjoyed the opportunity I had. And it's almost like you took that same approach of saying, man, I know so much, I'm better. How did you bounce back from, this diagnosis or so?
I won't say bounce back. I think that the most important thing was I was informed and I didn't become the doctor. Some people think they become the person that needs to treat them for whatever may be the treatment. And I didn't become that. I needed somebody to tell me and to listen. I think the most important thing that I think we've forgotten in healthcare and in life is continuity. Back in the days, continuity of care, you would have the same doctor from birth to death in some cases where I believe in that. So I believe in having a doctor availability because I don't think you remember. I said, "Hey doc, are you about to retire PCS or go somewhere?" And
You
he was
did.
like,
After you asked
"Well,
me if you were gonna die, that was like the second and then you asked where
yeah."
I was from, and then the next question was, "Are you PCS in retiring? What's going on? Are you gonna be here?" And I'm like, man, these are some different questions. I was not expecting, but it was great. But and the short answer was no. We've known each other what, 4 years, 5 years
4 years, yeah.
now? Yeah.
Because I
Yep.
wanted continuity care. I didn't want to start something and then look up and then I got to re-explain. Somebody else looks at something differently. And I wanted that. So once you assured me of the tools that I had available to me, there was a certain level of comfort. And then we kind of watched it. I had a situation where you gotta put on these leads and you gotta wear them for 30 days. And that was the first time they identified that, yeah, something was happening to my heart, not on a continual basis, but enough regularly to identify something. And I would be like, "Hey, so what time of day did it happen?" And it'll be like 5 o'clock in the morning. 5 o'clock in the morning. I know I'm asleep. So it was odd times, but it was still something happening. It was still being monitored. And I think as that went on, we moved to having put the device that the defibrillator was the next chapter of my life. And I'm thinking, hold on. I know doctor ain't trying to put a defibrillator in my chest. What is he talking about? Because now I got to digest this. One thing to digest that you identify something that doesn't affect you in a way that, in a way, I wish I had those signs. So I would have known. But had I
Mm,
not come in for the show Survivor to get that stress test, you would have never seen me because there's nothing in my annual physical or anything. It'll have to have been an event that says we need to check this guy out. So in a
mhm.
sense, Survivor has charted the course for my life to be where it's at, where I'm monitored, where I'm protected at the best medical level possible now. But so I go in there, I say, okay, so Dr. Bass monitors me and we go through this. And this is not just days, this is months. This
Right.
is
Yeah.
months.
This is a time course. Yeah. Yep.
But I know my mom wanted to go on this trip. I had planned a trip out. She wanted to go to Paris. And I'm a good son. I'm gonna make it happen. So and I said, Dr. Batts, I said, when should I get this? He says, I'd rather you have it sooner than later. What he really said to me was, I know I got some time. That's not what he really said, but to my ears it was like, okay, you got some time. You got some time. So I said, okay, well, I'm gonna do this trip. Well, I think the trip was in May. I'm gonna take my mom on this trip right here. I was pretty close hold about what was going on with me because I didn't want to worry my mother, but I said, let me take this trip. And I came back and I said, okay, Dr. Batts, I'm ready. I'm ready to do this next step because I think the way you explained it to me, it's better to have this device and not need it than need this device and not have it.
Exactly.
So I start going through the process and I go over to another hospital and I put my hands on the device. And I'm like, what in the world is this? I said, who is carrying around this big heavy object in their body? I mean, where are you going to put this at? I said, up until this point, he was my superhero. But I had to put him in the back. I was like, hold on, I got to talk to Superman because where am I going to put this device at? Or how is this device going to work? But I will say that this second part of that physical challenge, you put together a great team of people that one, continuity of care, two, that listen. Because I had to go over and meet Doctor. Don't remind me. I can't remember his name because I saw him at your. I saw him again. I can see his face, and I go over and I talk with him.
Mhm.
And we're sitting down, we're talking, and he's asking me questions, and I'm telling him everything I think I need to say, and he tells me how the procedure is going to go, and I'm thinking, okay, they still got to put something in my body that's foreign to my body, and they let me see it too, and I'm like, ooh, that's kind of heavy. Like, is that gonna fall out? Because this thing is in chapters. This health thing is in chapters. One, identification of something that I didn't know about, and trying to psychologically digest it. Trying to say that you used to be Superman, but you might not be a super rat now. And being in an environment with a doctor that lets you say what you need to say and then says, okay, now thank you. Now we need to go ahead and give you this information. And now you need to act on this information. And that's what I got. And I got that's okay. It's time to get what I need to get. Now at this time, I'm still doing everything I'm doing. I'm still out walking. I'm still lifting weights. I'm conscious of something's going on, but I'm not afraid of what's going on. Now I'm not hoping I'm going to drop dead either. I'm hoping that didn't hit me. What's really interesting? I'm hoping that I don't get that level event that you had spoke of. I'm hoping that's not what get me now because I know it's there. I know something's there, and I'm like, just don't let me have that level event. So now, every time I feel a flutter in my heart, I'm like, oh wait a minute, is that something wrong, or am I lightheaded, or I'm just leaning over too far?
I got
Now
up too
that's in
fast.
a
Hold on. What's happening? Yeah.
yeah. So it's
Now, my
those
intent
things.
wasn't to do that, but I did want to make you aware of
No,
the
that's
things, the triggers, the triggers.
But that's good because I mean, in the back of my mind now, I'm aware of it, and that's what you did. You made me aware of it. Dr. Bush was my he was my surgeon. Dr. Bush, great guy, great guy. He explained some stuff to me, and we get to the point where I got to get this device in, and I'm like, so I make preparations. I said, I make preparations. I already got my will done. I put together a list of names of people that, something did happen to me. I want y'all invited. I got somebody who I wanted to speak just in case something did happen. And I put all that to the side and I told the wife where it was at. And I was like, okay, if something happens, here, just go to the envelope. Everything you need is in the envelope. Cause you gotta prepare for things. No matter what
Yeah.
day of the week it is, you gotta be
Mhm.
prepared. So I said, okay, I'm gonna go in here, I'm gonna do this surgery. So I go in, I'm in the cath lab. And the only time I've ever heard that word was on TV, on medical shows. Got to go to the cath lab. I was like, the cath lab? When I got to the cath lab, I was like, what? This is not what I thought it was going to be like. On TV is great. In real life, it's not bad. It's just the place you go to get this device put in. But Dr. Bush was great. He said, hey, I do about 4 or 5 of these a day. I was like, I've never seen anybody with one. That's the crazy part. I've never seen somebody with one, and he does them, and he's over there. He's still over there. And I said, okay, let's go in there. So I go in there, which is kind of funny. This whole process of getting something embedded in your chest is really funny. So I get to go there. I get it embedded, and Dr. Batts says, hey, we had a great conversation after your surgery. And I looked at him. I said, no, we didn't. I don't remember when they started pushing them meds. I don't remember anything.
Mhm.
So then I come out of surgery and I'm like, anytime somebody cuts on you, it's to me, it's a traumatizing experience
Mhm.
because, I've got stitches before for, dumb stuff, but they actually cut in my chest. This is the only time that I did not Google, YouTube, or fact find something. I went on
You said,
YouTube
I don't even want to know. I don't want to know.
and they had the surgery on YouTube. I probably looked at 30 seconds and I didn't want to see any more of it.
No more.
I didn't. I was good with how they explained it to me. I didn't need to see how that surgery was performed, and now I have this scar. Now I'm sedentary. I can't move. I can't move my shoulder, and I'm like, what is this? Because now this is something different. This is not what's been identified. This is to help me in case something happens based off what's been identified. And I'm like, how do you adjust your life to an object? And people get rods and screws and things in their lives. So I know you can adjust to it, but I had never had to. So which was important to me to have the doctors that I did have, the access to the doctors that I did have for questions, concerns. My nurse, she's a great nurse. Every time I see her, I mean, it's just a joy. But to me, she's an old school nurse. Caringest person I've ever met in my life, but straight to the point and
She
stern.
will get you.
And I told her, some of the things I would do during the course of the year. And she's like, we need to hold off on that. And she gave me some specific instructions. Now, I'm used to going to the gym. I'm used to working out. I'm used to being active. She said, no, you're gonna have to sit still for a little while and don't touch a weight over, I think, 5 pounds.
Pounds, yep.
Yeah, so I'm 5'9", about 195. What does 5 pounds mean to me? Nothing. It's like, again, being hard headed. I do the surgery. I finally get that glue off of me. But then I have this device that I see, because by this time I'm smaller. My muscle mass has deteriorated
Mhm.
because I'm inactive. I'm not doing anything. I'm sitting around. I'm looking at TV. I'm just bored. I won't say I'm depressed. I'm just saying I don't like to sit still. And then every time I moved, it moved, and I was like, what if it pops out of my skin? And I mean, you're running all these scenarios. Or what if somebody hits it? Will it cut off, or will it? And I had all these scenarios running in my mind, because now I got to readjust. And I think the most important thing doing medical stuff is to have that connection where I could be like, hey, Dr. Batts, I don't understand this. I don't, how is this supposed to work?
Mhm.
And it's interesting because every time I come in, I always have a different question about something that I want to try, or something I want to do, or something to get me back to where I was. Never, she told me, and she was like, hey, don't lift over 5 pounds. Now, at this time in my life, I'm sleeping in a chair. I can't really get comfortable. And then I said, okay, well, I feel a little bit better. Here's the thing: when your doctor tells you something, it's important sometimes just to listen and
Yeah.
actually adhere to the instructions. I lift 5 pounds. No, no, no. I was overzealous. I lift 8 pounds.
Mhm.
My wife got some 5 pound weights, but I lifted 8 pounds. The next day I was in the emergency room.
Yep. You gonna learn today.
And I was like, I can't breathe. My side is killing me. I said, it was just 8 pounds. Now I'm thinking in my mind, why didn't you just lift the 5 pounds? What was you doing? And I found out another thing about surgeries. You have to be able to take a certain depth in your breathing to make your lungs expand. Well, apparently I wasn't doing that, because when it hurt, I just stopped breathing. And they was like, no. So they gave me a device to expand my lungs out and get that, whatever that's called, back to where it's supposed to be in your breathing. And I got my breathing back, and the pain went away. And I was like, okay, Dr. Bass, now we're on a different road of recovery. We're on a road where now I got a device built into me, which now I'm just a little nervous about somebody touching it. I'm a little nervous about things that I couldn't do, like saunas and stuff. It was some things that I shouldn't do anymore. I was good with the jackhammer one. I never was on a jackhammer anyway, so it wasn't a great loss to that to me. So I was like, okay, I'm good with
Yeah,
that one.
you that jacket, I'm good with that. Don't worry I'm not gonna sneak and do no jackhammering. So I think I'm good there. So
But due to my survival, I get to go out to Wyoming and I get to wrestle baby calves once a year. Now, if you've seen a baby calf, it's about 200 pounds of pure muscle.
Mhm.
And if you got a device in your chest, you don't want a baby calf to kick you in it. So, and then I'm still healing. So for a year, I took off, and then before I went back out there. But those are things that you have to be conscious of now. So I go back and I'm doing everything, and I'm trying to get back in. I had to accept that the process was going to be slow.
Mhm.
And that probably was the hardest thing. I remember trying to go for a walk, and I literally just walked down the street and walked back, because I was like, I just don't feel like I can make it further. But gradually I started to get back in. If you out there and you're really active, or doing a semi activity, when you're not active anymore, you feel like you got to be active. And I was like, I got to get back active. I just feel like I'm not doing anything. But you got to be conscious of, you're gonna have limitations. So I think the year and some change that it's taking to really feel comfortable of having the device, still having hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, and then navigating the different aspects of it. Now I'm sitting around. I think we looked at my blood work and was like, hey, your blood work is a little different. And I said, I know where it's coming from. I'm just not doing anything because psychologically,
Mhm.
I'm trying to rebalance. I'm trying to get my psychological mentality back, and I'm trying to rebalance. But then you're causing other issues. He's like, well, you can't, I'm sitting there eating stuff that I normally probably wouldn't eat, but I'm just killing time. So you got to try to balance it out. And it wasn't overnight. It's still not overnight. I'm still working at it. I just bought my first 40-pound dumbbell. And I'm like, 40 pounds.
We
I'm
back,
like,
man. We back. There we go. I
and
told you it's a
it's
process.
I only bought one. So I ain't even back that far. I'm halfway back. If I didn't buy two, I
Well,
bought one.
you can do basically kettlebells, a similar kettlebell squat. You can squat with it, single arm. Maybe single arm rows might be a little over the, but no, I mean, because again, when we saw each other the last time, from a fitness standpoint, you're looking closer to where you were. And I know you say I don't do it for looks, but reason why looks is important for me because I can follow your weight. But the tricky thing about weight is, even though muscle weighs more than fat, it gives me an idea when I look and see, okay, he's looking more like a Georgia running back now. He's looking like if I tossed him the rock, he could do something with it. When I see those changes occur, that means, okay, he's getting muscle mass back. He's staying active. And that's why when you come in and you're talking about all the things that you're doing, the plans that you're going, hey, the family and I are doing this. I'm like, okay, we back. We getting there. We making this progress. And I think the other thing that you've done, because you talked about this slow recovery, so to speak, but it didn't stop some of the things that you did that weren't physical, right? Like, your nonprofit, the YouTube, the podcast,
No,
like staying engaged in all those other things, I think is also important and giving back. I mean, that's one of the things again that I want them to know, hey, look, he is this, but he's not defined by the condition. I think a lot of times people hear they have a condition or know they have a condition, and then they create this box and they just jump into it and say, yep, nope, I got this condition. This is where I'm staying. And I think you pushed back against that, which I can't tell patients to do that, but that's what I want. I mean, I want you to follow the rules so we stay safe,
say
but
like
really
stay out of trouble.
start to challenge, some of the notions. And interestingly, in hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, we talked about, folks should know that there are two types. There's what's called obstructive and non-obstructive. And so in non-obstructive, many of those symptoms, as in your case, you don't have, right? But in obstructive, because it obstructs or limits some of the blood flow out of the heart, that's where the dizziness and the passing out occur. And we used to think about hypertrophic cardiomyopathy as a whole, right? Meaning no exercise, don't get your heart rate up, don't do those type things. And I think your first encounter or engagement was more like that. And like you said, hey, that didn't fit me. Right. Whereas for me, I've had the pleasure of honor of taking care of patients that were across the spectrum. And I think staying active in all those spectrums now different, right? What I'm going to recommend will be different from an activity standpoint, but it'll help you to kind of stay engaged, to not just pass the time. Because again, and you said it earlier, when you stop one thing, other things start to happen and labs start to
Yeah.
change and other issues start to occur. And now we're creating more than one problem in that process. So kudos to you for pushing the envelopes. But I know I don't have to tell you to push the envelope. You do that anyway.
Yeah, I'm still back. I was just out in Wyoming this year tackling. Oh, I didn't tackle. It was something going on. But I still like. I've been fortunate enough, and I believe in giving back too as well. And being on Survivor was a great experience for me. But it was the first time in a different kind of way you see how you impact other people's lives. Because I got an opportunity to meet people that either want to be on the show or they have had the opportunity to see their self on the show and it helped them in their lives. And we get to talk to these people and it's like, hey, I saw such and such on the show and it was at a point in my life where I really needed to see that. And it's an interesting group of people. And I remember when I saw one of the fans that I grew up watching on Survivor call me at home because we had to talk about a
Mm.
charity event. And I'm like, I remember growing up seeing her and now we're talking. So it's a fan. I'm a fan within a show that I'm a part of. When we're just us and it's just our people that from Survivor, I'm a fan. When we're all together, I'm a survivor. I'm one of the other players that's been on a different season.
Hmm.
And as you were saying, I get to give back. So this year I'm raising money for St. Jude's Children's Hospital. This is my second year. And I picked St. Jude's because I think the kids need the best opportunity and the best medical care to live those adventures and see those journeys. I've been fortunate enough to be able to do a lot of things in my life, and they just need that opportunity. And if they can get that, and we have a hospital right here in San Antonio. So, but it's just an opportunity that continue to afford me opportunities or afford me an opportunity to meet somebody or talk to someone that normally we may not come in contact with. And being in your like, I remember when I saw Dr. Bash for the first time, he said, "Hey, your muscle mass is coming back." He said that's usually a concern with patients that they don't go back or they can't get back to where they were before. And I was like, okay, I didn't think about it like that. I just thought about it saying, hey, can I get back to my routine? And the results of the routine is your body shapes to the routine. And I also remember the fear I had when somebody slapped me in that area talking to me.
Remember that call.
And I was like, I wonder why this is how he talks. He physical and he hit me and I'm like, did he notice what it was there? And I'm like, did it move something? And as I continue to try to get back to where I'm at, that pronounced device that used to stick out is almost flat with my chest. So unless you look or I move a certain way, you won't even know it's there. But that's also a part of the psychological part of looking at it and saying, "Oh man, yeah, that thing is still there. It wasn't a dream." You come to be able because you're gonna live because I got 10 years. Battery life is good for 10 years.
Mhm.
And then and by that time, I'm pretty sure they're gonna have different type of devices out or something else. But I'm familiar with the surgery. I'm familiar with the process. It's not as scary now going back. And I know that if something happens to me, I know that I'm prepared for it versus if something had happened to me and they identified it, I could have died or it could have done more damage. And you just kind of have to make some of the stuff you have to make peace with. Some of you have to make peace with, and some of you have to make changes in your own life. And then, like I said, like we were talking about, other things change too. Well, I love a good chicken wing. Love a good chicken wing. But at the same time, chicken wings and sedentary don't go together well.
No, they do not.
I love a good dessert. Don't get me wrong now. If you put a good dessert in front of me, I'm gonna do my good, I'm gonna do respect to you. And I'm gonna knock that dessert down. But I also know that I can't carry 230 on my frame.
Right.
I know for health purposes, that's not gonna be good for me. I know for now, for my heart, that's not gonna be good for me. So I have to get that balance. And some people find it difficult. I'm not saying it's not. Some days I don't want to go out there and walk. I think I came to you, Dr. Batts, and says, "Hey, San Antonio, we're summertime, so our summertime heat is about 100 in the afternoon." And I'm like,
Definitely.
okay, how is that heat going to impact me in the afternoon out there walking? I walk about late, so the sun is coming down, but it's still 100 degrees. How's that going to impact me? Because I want to know, and I wanted the information to make good decisions.
Mhm.
And I did stall you out. I stalled you because I didn't want to get it. I was like, I believe in what you're telling me, and I trust in what you're saying, but you weren't selling me at first on getting no device put in my chest.
No,
I was like,
but that's shared decision making, right? It is shared, right? It isn't me saying you must. It is
I don't
me
know what type of
saying,
shared it was.
it was shared. Like at the end of the day, you made the decision when you wanted it, right? So that's the beauty of cardiology, right? We got different levels of indication. We got class 1, you should, class 2A, it will be reasonable, class 2B, you could consider, right? And so early on, before we had objective evidence, we could consider. Then when we started to see little things, it will be reasonable. When we got to you should though, right? When we got to the class 1s and I said, hey, I know we've been waiting on this thing. And I think the fact that we had built a relationship almost through each of the indications. And by the time we got to when I said, hey, we need to get this done, and it was a fix meeting, it wasn't much longer after that. You kind of sensed that. You like, if Dr. Bass really feels like, man, we hitting because they're different tiers, right? They're different tiers of risk. And when we started to calculate that risk score for you early on, I mean, it was there, but it wasn't as compelling as where it was when we ultimately said, hey, look, we gotta go. And I think at that point, I felt good, you felt good, we
And
both
you
felt
presented it in a
informed.
manner.
Yeah, yeah. We wanted
You presented
because
it
we
to me in a
always were
way.
on the same team. We always were on the same team, but I just had to be a little bit more forceful general manager. I had to be a little bit.
His dialogue, his dialogue let me know that my time had ran out. And here's the thing about it is it was a lot about, hey, we want to put you in a situation where you're best medically capable if something does happen. And I understood that. I had my reasons for kind to try to push as far as I could, but he's right. I knew in how he was explaining things to me that I needed to go ahead and take care of this business. And I said, okay, well, let's go ahead and take care of it. But a lot of it was the way, like anything else in life, everybody's not created equal. Dr. Batts, as a cardiologist, is not going to be like another cardiologist. I will challenge people to do this right here. If your doctor doesn't sit back and listen, you probably want a different doctor because the first part of medical care is listening to the patient, no matter, because I've had some crazy things to ask him too. Because I mean, you want to know everything, and I'll be like, hey, Dr. Batts, got a quick question. That's usually the setup of how I get that crazy question in.
Mhm.
It's to give me the most information, and he always listened. Okay, let's see what he's gonna say. Yeah, we not gonna do that. We not gonna do that. Here's the reason why. Give him a chance to digest it, but it put me in a situation where one, I felt comfortable about whatever care that I needed to receive that I was gonna get. Two, the team that was assembled to do the surgery in the aftercare. Because now with the devices, every 6 months I do go back and they do check the device, but it's also on a 24/7 monitoring service at home. So I got a device that sits in my office. And what's funny is the first time I saw it reset itself, I said, "Oh goodness, something's wrong." I said, what is going on here?" Because I was like, "Why is this thing blinking?" But it resets itself, but it also monitors me. I talked to my nurse about being away from it and how long I could be away from it. I don't have the ring. I do have a watch sometimes that I wear to monitor my heart rate. I think eventually I might get the ring. I just trying to, try to stick to things that I know. And you be telling me about
Yeah.
that ring thing, but I'll be like, I'm gonna get it
I
on a
mean,
Christmas list.
yeah, there you go. Add it
Bit
to
of
the
a
Christmas. I
Christmas
mean,
list.
for me, it's just I knew that when I looked at kind of the three pillars of health or fitness, right, is going to be, of course, exercise. That's easy. Nutrition. That's the other one. And then finally is recovery and how well do you recover? Not that my nutrition is perfect, but I got a pretty good handle on that. I don't have a tough time exercising, but I don't recover well. Like I don't let me say it like this. I don't prioritize it, right? And my wife always says, "You tell all your patients to do X, Y, Z, but you don't even sleep, you don't even do this." And so I told myself having a physical trigger in this ring that tells me, "Hey, look, and I'll tell this story, and then we'll close out. I became a believer in, I won't say the ring. A believer sounds like a strong word. I became an advocate for the ring when a couple years ago I was going through my normal, sleeping 4 hours, working, burning a candle at both ends, and the ring told me on a Tuesday, "Hey, it looks like your temperature is up. Looks like your breathing pattern has changed. Oh man, something must be wrong with this ring." The next day, told me the same thing, right? By Friday, I was sick, coughing. I had my first episode of COVID. No, I swear, no lie. And the ring told me on Tuesday. Well, guess what? Fast forward 9 months, right? The ring says, "Hey, your temperature's up." Hey, I said, "Hold on, let me go." So I actually go to my primary care doctor and say, "I feel well, nothing is wrong." The ring said, and they looked at me like, "Are you crazy?" And I'm like, "I'm
Are you
telling you guys, I'm telling you, the ring said." So sure enough, they said, "Well, we'll run the test. We'll run the test." Sure enough, it was positive. And so I had the flu. So that's sitting out. Now, granted, the ring isn't designed to diagnose and treat any of the, I want to put a disclaimer in, but for me, it lets me know that my body hasn't hit the reset. And the beautiful thing about our conversation is you talked about the condition, you talked about the process of getting it done, kind of the, not the final step, but the preventive process and what we needed to do from a procedural standpoint. And then it was the recovery, right? And you didn't talk about in 1 month I was back doing this. It was a gradual recovery, and it wasn't just a physical recovery. It wasn't just, kind of this, activity recovery. It wasn't just this emotional recovery. It was an interactive. It was this social recovery. Okay, how do I interact with individuals that I know slap my chest? How do I, go back to doing this? And I think for a lot of people, for whatever condition, they might recover physically, but they don't balance and prioritize both the social interacting and the emotional components that come around having a new diagnosis.
I,
So
I know.
go ahead.
And I know because when a guy slapped me and he was just talking to me, and I was like, "Ooh." So, but once you get by that, you say, "Okay, okay, that's another hurdle that's by."
Hmm.
I play golf too, so I remember when I walked my first 18 holes, I was like, "Oh man, I feel fine. I'm not tired. I'm not lethargic." As you get across some hurdles, it really helps you psychologically and mentally to just say, "You know what? I'm getting back." The thing with me was, I at one point I wanted to rush back,
Hmm.
and I just couldn't get back. So now it's just a gradual self-paced, but also I walk with you as a doctor and say, "Okay, well, Dr. Batts, I'm coming in. It's my 6 months checkup. Here's what I'm feeling." I always get my annual physical, make sure, hey, what my labs look like. Oh, you got this,
Hmm.
maybe your cholesterol is looking a little high. And I'll be like, "Okay, I know why." And I was like, "Okay, well, I know what I need to do," or my sugar might, okay, I know what I'm doing.
Hmm.
But those hurdles become less and less, and you become familiar with your condition to the point now, okay, how do I manage it now? It's there. It's not going anywhere. How do I manage this device in my chest? Well, make sure you got your 6 months checkup. Make sure it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. How do I manage my diet? Okay, well, I need to figure out what works for me. And physically, I feel better. I'm getting there, but I know where I want to get to. So, and just not rush it. But I think the two most important things to me in all this process was having good medical people on the team that was put together for me, and also knowing that change is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. Some people say, "Oh, I don't want to change. I don't. I've been doing this all." No, man, I will change everything if it means that I'm in the best situation possible, especially for health reasons. And I can't complain. Some days I do fall into a thought about it, and I know it's there, and or I'll accidentally hit it, and I'll be like, "Oh, okay, it's there," but it's less now. It's not as pronounced as it was before. But I'm always conscious that it's there. I'm always conscious if I'm somewhere and I'm with people, hey, just want to give you an idea. If something happens or something, just be aware that this happens. I got my card. I got
Hmm.
my card I carry with me. And I remember when I was afraid to go through the little things at the airport.
Yep.
These are hurdles. These are hurdles that you have to get over because I was flying. Actually, I was concerned about the pressure in the plane one time. It's just little things that you just find in that is a hurdle that once you jump over that hurdle, you're like, okay, I'm over that hurdle. And now I'm in tune with the what it is. I'm in tune with making sure I definitely come in and see Dr. Batts and be like, hey, let's see what it looks like, checking the device and things of that nature.
Wonderful. Well, I mean, as always, our conversations are just phenomenal. I learn so much every time we talk. Something new that you were thinking that I didn't know moving forward. Well, I know the folks were educated. Hopefully, they are energized, and more
Mm,
importantly, they are engaged in understanding, even outside of the realm of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, just how to navigate conditions, whether they be cardiac or otherwise, knowing that it's not just a physical recovery, it is an emotional one as well as a social one, and it requires building that relationship. But that said, I know they want to find out where they can kind of hear your podcast, watch your YouTube, or follow the Survivor crew. I know you all do tons of community service events, tons of different things. Just let the folks know kind of where they can tune into that, or if you know, and they like I say, you probably I know you have a following of fans from Survivor 41 and beyond. But let them know where they can engage, and then we'll close out after that.
on the Survivor side of the house, if you want to follow me about so anything related to Survivor, and a couple of any CBS shows, we kind of all interact with each other. On Instagram, you can follow me at Abraham underscore 99 underscore 99. If you're interested in finance, but said in the old school way, you can go out on YouTube. It's old school finance with Abraham and friends. It's a way to talk about finances in a basic manner, but a structured manner to say, hey, if you execute these tasks, you can build wealth in your life. And it was something that came about because I wanted to do something old school, and I wanted to put the work that I had done before in finance to use and do something I just had a passion for. And that's where you can find me at. I'm out there. Survivor Now podcast is the podcast I'm on doing the season, and we cover Australian Survivor, South African Survivor, UK Survivor, and US Survivor, which will be back on in September. I can't complain. I have so much fun, and I get to do different things, and I get to enjoy an experience that I didn't think was being put on my life, but I also get to enjoy it knowing that health-wise, I'm in the best hands possible. So that's why I'm still here doing what I do.
Thank you so much for joining me. And again, like I said, as I told you all, he is doing so much. He's not just sitting, waiting on IT professional, Survivor personality, nonprofit fundraiser, organizer, it's good. I'm glad that I know people that are multifaceted. But as I said, this is the About That Life podcast with Dr. Batts. I have the pleasure and honor of talking to some of the most wonderful people, some being friends, some being patients, some being a mix of both, and Mr. Abraham is one of them. He talked about his experience, his journey, and various things that had led him to a place where he understands recovery is not just a physical one. It's not just an emotional one. It is how you interact with the environment that you once knew. Not to forget it, but to understand that change is a part of everything we do. That change is something that we must take hold of and understand that to truly change and embrace the person we want to be, it forces us to live intentionally forever. Thank you.
We truly hope you enjoyed today's episode of the About That Life podcast. If you did, leave a comment, give it a like, subscribe, and share it with a friend. And certainly join us for our next episode of the About That Life podcast.